Well, here we are, 4th of July, 2022. I'm Larissa. I'm going to continue reading Passion's Torrent here, my novel. I'm going to talk a little bit, before I do that, though, about the title of the novel and also the names of the characters, because they are very conscious. They were conscious choices. So, Passion's Torrent. I wrote this book as part of my Lenten practice, and the process of the crucifixion of Jesus Christ is called the Passion. And so there's that aspect to that layer to this work, as well as the romantic feelings that are part of the impetus of all of the characters. All of these characters are passionate about something. Whether it's a healthy passion or an unhealthy passion, they're passionate about something. And then the main character, Torrent, his name I chose because when I was writing this, we were having torrential downpour here. The whole time that I wrote this book, it was raining, and there was just water pouring down the side of the mountain, and there were rivulets cutting through our driveway, and it was massive, the amount of water. It was a torrent, and I felt like as I was writing that the story was coming like a torrent, like the rain. It was mirroring the veracity of the rain outside, and so that's where those two, it's where the title came from, and the main character, title character, Torrent, where his name came from. His brother Kodo came from, while I was writing, I was also burning incense, and when we first moved to California, there was a Japanese company that I used to order incense from. It was handmade incense from a company called Nippon Kodo, and that means Japan's heartbeat. Kodo means heartbeat. And so that's where that name came from. And also, Kodo, he's in love. He's asking a woman to marry him, whereas Torrent is in love with the idea of a woman. Kodo is actually in love with a woman. And so that's, it's his heartbeat, right? That's where that came from. And then Betty, her name, Elizabeth Betty. Betty is my mother-in-law's middle name. Not Elizabeth, Betty. So that's where the mother's name came from, Betty. And I don't know, I just pulled Stan out of the air. I don't know where that came from. But Daisy was my great-grandmother's name, Daisy Louise Leeds. And her family, my great-grandpap Leeds, he was Scotch-Irish. And my great-grandma, Daisy, her family, it's hard because my grandmother did genealogy, and Daisy was a house servant. Her parents sold her. She was they were from Appalachia. Her family, Daisy's family, was originally from Kentucky, from the mountains in Kentucky, and her family sold her to another family, and there's traditions and things that my great-grandmother taught my mother, my great-grandmother taught my grandmother, my grandmother taught me, that I have found in books and websites for Shawnee. And the Shawnee were in that area where my great-grandmother's biological family was from. So we don't know if we don't know what family member had tribal influence or was from that group or not, or if the knowledge and traditions were just shared among neighbors. But photos of my great-grandma Leeds, she certainly, if you told me she was an Indian, I'd believe it, like if I'd never seen the pictures before. I don't know. Like I said, a lot of the medicinal practices, remedies, the traditional remedies and things that my grandmother taught me, that she said her mother taught her, I have found in Native American publications. So, I don't know. Her family always did a barbecue around powwow season on the Occoganey River, which was traditional powwow grounds. And so I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me. And people have these conversations about, indigenous this, indigenous that. Human beings are indigenous to planet Earth. Human beings are indigenous to Earth, and I think we'd all do well if we started acting like that was the case, right? I mean, everybody is indigenous to somewhere, right? So, in naming this character Daisy after my great-grandmother, I wanted to give my great-grandmother a voice in some ways, right? And then the name Darren, I chose Darren because of the old TV show Bewitched, and there was, always accusation of women. There's always that around somewhere. Oh, a woman's a witch, That's why you have to be beholden to a man so nobody thinks you're a witch. Oh, whatever the hell that means. It means being in touch with your body, whatever, right? Being close to the earth. I don't know what that means. I don't know what it means. I'm not a pagan. I don't, so I don't know. But I've been accused of being a witch, and I know what that feels like. And so that's why I named her husband Darren. And a lot of Daisy's experience it's not a story of my experience, but it's very much informed by experiences I have had as an assault survivor. So anyway, let's get to it here on the 4th of July. Passion's Torrent, an original work of fiction by Larissa Dahroug. All rights reserved. Chapter 5, Daisy. The hotel room was starting to drive Daisy crazy. Loops was confused. He didn't understand why they weren't at home and why he had to stay in this little room for so long. Daisy had to go back to the house. She needed to deal with the blood on the bed. It turned out it wasn't as bad as it could have been. The blood had been identified as deer blood. It was creepy, but at least it wasn't pig, chicken, dog, or human. Deer blood was easier to live with somehow. There was a large deer population in the area, and lots of guys hunted. Daisy was calmed somewhat by the thought that the deer was probably not slaughtered just for its blood. It probably wasn't witchcraft. The police agreed. The perp was probably a hunter. The police sent a squad car to accompany Daisy for the cleanup. Entering the house, she was struck with the acrid smell of decomposition. She thought about William Faulkner and his frequent use of the word fecund in his work. This was definitely not fecund. This was acrid. She could taste a mix of sweetness and putridity in the back of her throat. It made her gag. Walking into the bedroom, it was still shocking. The blood was almost entirely black, like a scab. Daisy picked up the corner of the bedspread and found it was slightly jelly-like underneath. The scab jiggled. Well, she thought, I could just bag it all up and throw it away. Darren's vomit was still on the floor in the corner. She'd have to clean that up, too. The police had given her the number of a forensic cleanup crew, but they wanted over $5,000, and the Forzyks just didn't have it right now. They had used a credit card to pay for Loop's procedure. Under the kitchen sink, she dug out rubber gloves and pulled them over her hands. She dug out a garbage bag and some rags and a roll of paper towel and a bottle of bleach and a bucket. She filled the bucket with hot water, then dragged everything into the bedroom. On the back of the door, one of Darren's old hoodies hung on a hook. She pulled it over her head and clothes. It came to her knees. Perfect. Daisy rolled the bloody bed linens into a ball and shoved them in the garbage bag. The pillows didn't seem to have anything on them, but those were going too. She didn't want any of this in her home. The blood must have already been somewhat coagulated when it was spread on the bed. It hadn't soaked totally through. There were only a couple spots on the mattress, no more than the time she had a miscarriage and bled in her sleep. There would be a stain, and she wanted to get a new mattress for sure, but at least she could probably get the trash hauler to take the distasteful thing away. The bloody bedding was another story. She didn't want to put it in the washing machine to see how it washed out. With the bedding contained, she turned to the dried pile of vomit and attacked it with the bleachy hot water and rags. Thank God the floor was tile and not hardwood or carpet. She had fought with Darren over the tile. He had wanted the tile, but she had wanted hardwood like in the living room. He argued it would be easier to tile since they were tiling the kitchen, which connected to the bedroom with big wooden double doors. She'd eventually given in. Some of the splatter on the wall left a yellowish stain. She was pretty sure there was some paint left in the garage, but that could wait. Then she walked out to shove the bag in the trash. When she walked out to shove the bag in the trash, her police escort arrived. Oh, excuse me. No, that's not what it says. I'll read that sentence again. When she walked out to shove the bag in the trash, her police escort protested. What you got there? He asked. Bloody bedding, Daisy called back to him. No, not in the trash. Daisy was ready to cry. Well, what the hell am I supposed to do with it then? She sobbed. The cop felt bad. He removed the camera pinned to his lapel and approached her gently. Look, the best thing would be to incinerate it. I have a buddy with a burn pile in his backyard. He can meet you here tomorrow and pick it up in his truck. Just don't tell anyone. Okay, thank you. Daisy took the bag into the garage and left it next to the deep freeze. The cop escorted her back to the motel, where she collapsed on the bed with Loops and cried. Loops was trying to lick his incision site. The cone was doing its job. He had pooped on the floor while she was gone. Daisy cried herself into a waking sleep and had the strangest dream. She was aware of where she was and knew Loops was there with her, but she couldn't move. It was like she was awake and asleep at the same time. She would have panicked, but she felt so warm, so safe, so comfortable. Then she saw him, a youngish man she had never seen before. He was smiling at her. It was like he was both in the room and somewhere else at the same time. He was very handsome, tall, and creamy complected. His hair was brushed back away from his brow. His eyes were like Belgian chocolates. He began to walk toward her. He knelt down beside the bed where she lay. Loops rolled over and offered his belly. He touched her cheek, and she smelled the light scent of sandalwood. She had never felt so safe, so comforted. He gently kissed her forehead and disappeared. Slowly, Daisy's mobility returned, and she hoisted herself up on the bed. Loops was sleeping on his back, with his legs stretched out. She rubbed his belly, and he stirred. She needed to get out of the room again. Daisy took a shower and decided to take Loops for a walk. They walked for a few hours in no particular direction. When she got back to the room, Darren was back from work. Where the fuck have you been? He asked. Just walking, Loops. I couldn't stand being in this room all day. But you know this is the only place I can know you're safe for sure. Why do you care now? It's not like you've cared for the past 4 years. Daisy threw back at him. What the hell is that supposed to mean? It can mean whatever the hell you want it to mean. Besides, Loops can't stay in this room all day either. It's cruel. I'd rather you be safe and bored than entertained and dead. Whatever, you're just mad because the blood was on your side of the bed this time. The police had instructed Daisy to stay in the room as much as possible. The other 2 women had been told the same. Of the 3, Daisy's case was the worst. There hadn't been any blood involved in the other 2 B&Es. Undergarments were taken and notes had been left. None of it had been offered to the news, and Daisy was happy about that. She had done a vlog entry, but had been careful not to include details or say where she was staying. Daisy didn't want to talk to the other 2 women. They'd been hanging out together in the dingy motel restaurant with one of the cops on detail for most of the day. One of the women had remembered Daisy from passing at the police station 4 years earlier and tried to get her attention through the window when she left with Loops. Daisy had ignored her entirely. What's wrong with hanging out with Layla and Sarah? Darren asked Daisy. Nothing. But nothing's right about it either. I don't know those women, and I don't want to know them. That's just silly, Darren said. You know what? I'm sick and tired of being told how I'm supposed to feel, act, and look. Who's telling you how to look? Oh, for crying out loud. Didn't you ask me what I was wearing when I told you what had happened? I told you I was sorry about that. Sorry for what? You aren't sorry for anything. Your comment just told me loud and clear that you think I deserve to be assaulted because I looked cute in my yoga pants. Well, now I'm fat, and the motherfucker's still after me. So much for your theories. So much for all you men. You just don't get it. Neither of those women have had the experience I'm having. I don't want to know them. I don't want to be bothered listening to them whine. Daisy's voice raised an octave every couple sentences until Darren was wincing. Just remember the blood was on my side of the bed. Fuck you, Daisy spat at him, grabbed her keys, and pushed past him towards her car. The daydream from earlier was on her mind. It was a pleasant distraction. As she headed to her car, the officer on detail called out to her, Mrs. Forzik, come back. Where are you going, Mrs. Forzik? Daisy just ignored him and shoved the key into the ignition. The car sputtered to life. Daisy drove nowhere in particular for hours, music blasting in the CD player. The Smiths, Some Girls Are Bigger Than Others. Ain't that the truth? Daisy thought to herself. The young man from her daydream loomed in her mind. A man like that would never want me. Darren doesn't even want me, she thought. But still, he was nice to think about. What would his name be? Daisy couldn't even imagine. But the feel of his lips on her brow was warm on her face, and it was wonderful, if only. When Daisy returned to the motel, it was dark, and Darren was asleep with loops wrapped around his feet. A half-eaten pizza was in a box next to the TV. Daisy ate a piece of congealed pizza, then took a shower and brushed her teeth. Loops whimpered, and Darren stirred as she got in the bed. "Where'd you go?" he asked, still half asleep. "Nowhere." "You were gone a long time to be nowhere. You never even asked how my day was." "How was—" Daisy cut him off mid-sentence. "Don't ask me now. If you didn't care then, you don't care now." Darren sighed and went back to sleep. Daisy rolled over and thought of her daydream boyfriend. Between her legs became warm and moist. It felt amazing. The next day, Darren left for work before Daisy woke up. He left a note. "Hope today is better. Gave Loops his meds. Call me if you need me to come home early. Love, D." Daisy sighed and crumpled the note into a ball, tossing it into the wastebasket. Nothing but net. The crowd in her mind went wild. Loops went to check out what she had tossed away. Daisy freshened up and dressed and headed back over to the house. The cop's buddy would be there soon to meet her, and she wanted to be there first. When Daisy pulled up to the house, the yellow crime scene tape was broken and flapping in the breeze. It was probably nothing, but she waited in the driveway anyway. She wasn't taking any chances. About 20 minutes passed before a big black Dodge dual-exhaust pickup pulled in the driveway. The side was labeled Hemi. A stocky man about 10 years Daisy's senior hopped down out of the cab and knocked on her window, waving. She smiled uneasily and got out of her Honda. "Hi, I hear you need some help with a cleanup." Daisy relaxed some. "Yes, thank you." "I'm Roland." He extended his hand to Daisy to shake. It was strong and callous, but friendly. "I'm Daisy. Alan said you had quite a mess in here to deal with." "Alan?" "Oh, yeah, sorry, I'm Officer Perrin, my buddy. He said you have a mess in there." "Well, it's not so bad. Most of the blood was just in the bedding." "Deer blood," he said. "Yeah, deer. Creepy." "Yep, creepy and stinky." Daisy took out her keys and unlocked the front door. It still smelled a little, but now the smell of bleach was stronger. Roland made a face. "Wow, that's strong." "Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm going to do." "About?" Roland asked. Daisy thought for a second. "I don't know about anything these days." I can't even imagine. It must be hard." Daisy's eyes welled up with tears. "It's not easy. Please follow me." Daisy led Roland into the bedroom. "Here's the mattress. I think the regular garbage will pick it up." Roland pursed his lips. "Nah. Alan said I should just take it. That's why I brought the Hemi, bigger bed. The mattress should fit flush in the bottom for me. Where's the bedding?" "In the garage. I put it in a plastic bag." "Great. That should be easy to deal with. Do you think you can help me carry this out?" "Yeah, as long as you're the one that lifts it into the truck. I don't think I can do that." "That's fine. Not a problem." It took a little over 40 minutes, but they got the mattress and bag of stinking bedding into the bed of the truck, and Roland tied everything down. "It's actually pretty lucky." "What?" Daisy asked, confused. "Lucky?" "Yeah, I mean, I have a pile ready to burn right now. I was just getting ready to light it when Alan called me. It's perfect. The pile is big enough I shouldn't need to use any accelerant to take care of this, but it's going to make a shit ton of smoke. You want to come watch it burn?" Daisy was horrified at the thought. She just wanted it out of her life. "No, that's okay. I think I'll pass," she said to him. Roland seemed to be waiting for something. Daisy hadn't even thought of a tip. She was embarrassed. "Look, I'm really sorry. I don't have anything I can give you right now, but if you leave me your card or something." Roland looked a little disappointed, but was apologetic. "Don't worry about it. I'm happy to help. I will give you my card, though, and if you are in need of any yard cleanup in the future, give me a call. That's what I do, landscape cleanup and retaining walls." He handed Daisy an old wrinkled business card. Daisy took it from him gratefully. "Certainly. You'll be first on our list." Roland pulled out of the driveway, leaving Daisy standing with his card in her hand. It was all draining. Daisy felt like she needed to do something nice for herself, and she needed to get the smell of rotting deer blood out of her nose. She decided to go pick up a bottle of her favorite perfume. She'd been meaning to do it for over a month now. Daisy drove into town to the perfume shop. She wasn't feeling very lucky. She couldn't find parking anywhere close to the shop and ended up parking 10 blocks away and taking a bus. She hated taking the bus. Inevitably, some creepy creeper sat next to her. This was no exception. Daisy chose the seat closest to the door. The bus wasn't busy, and no one was seated around her when she sat down. But at the next stop, a little old woman bustled aboard. There were 3 seats empty surrounding Daisy, and Daisy that she could have chosen, but the woman decided to hassle Daisy. That seat, it's closest to the door and is reserved for elders and the handicapped. She nodded toward Daisy and her seat. Daisy sighed in irritation. Look, there are these 3 seats just as close to the open door here. But that seat is designated for me. Now move your ass out of my seat, little girl. The bus driver closed the door and looked at the woman in the mirror above the steering wheel. Daisy sighed heavily again, decided it wasn't worth the argument, and moved. The old woman settled herself in the seat with a smug, satisfied expression on her face. Daisy looked out the window. The old woman was still not satisfied. Daisy had suffered enough. I ride this line every day. Everyone knows this seat is mine. They post the sign for a reason, you know. Or maybe you can't read. Maybe you're one of those little girls that got knocked up by the time she was 12 and never bothered to learn how to read. The bus driver looked in the mirror. Daisy continued to ignore the woman, but she went on. Oh, so you're deaf too. Deaf and dumb and illiterate. Daisy had finally had enough. She turned to meet the gaze of the old coot. With all due respect, which is very little as far as I'm concerned, you would do well to shut your mouth. You got your seat, and really now, there's plenty of space here, just as close to the door. You're just a lonely old crone, and I don't feel bad for you. The bus driver chimed in. And neither do I, Minerva. I told you if there was another incident like this, I wouldn't stop to pick you up anymore. Not everyone out there is out to get you. The old woman huffed and crossed her paper-skinned arms across her chest. She glared at Daisy, but didn't say anything else to her. Daisy went back to looking out the window. The next stop was hers anyway. Stepping off the bus, Minerva shouted something at Daisy that she didn't understand. Geez, I hope I don't get like that, she thought to herself. She had Darren and Loops, but lately Daisy had been feeling quite lonesome. She didn't really have any friends, mostly because she couldn't bear dishonesty and didn't know how to consciously tell even a small white lie. The few friends she had went MIA after the attack, as if it were something contagious they could catch. Her family had pretty much disowned her because she didn't have any children, and most of the women she met who were her age had children, and it was their life. Daisy couldn't relate and wasn't interested in being a babysitter. People were always telling her she would regret not having kids, but Daisy knew they were just mad because they had kids to worry about and pay for, and misery loves company, as her grandmother used to say. The only reason she could see anyone would really need to have children was to take care of them when they got old. But Daisy knew that was a lie, too. There's no law that requires children are responsible for caring for aging parents. She knew from volunteering at a retirement home that there were plenty of children who never visited their parents, and with very good reasons. Having a child doesn't make you a good person. People used the fact that Daisy didn't have children as a reason to ostracize and exclude her from activities and events, and Daisy couldn't be bothered trying to appease such ignorance. So she kept mostly to herself. It had always been that way. Darren used to be enough, but over the years distance had grown between them, and it was now like living with a stranger she knew really well. They had a common routine, but no intimate connection and very little sex. Darren knew nothing about Daisy's life, and Daisy had stopped trying to know about Darren's. All Darren cared about was his image. On more than one occasion, he had accused Daisy of being an embarrassment. That was when Daisy had started her vlog, the last time he had called her an embarrassment. Daisy was surprised to see the store had a big window display with her perfume. Until now, it had been tucked in a back corner of the store, if the store had any stock at all. Usually they had to order it for her. A couple times she had ordered it online, but last time she had done that the package had been stolen. So, to the store she went. Just inside the door there was a round table with a pyramid stack of boxes of tea rose. She plucked one from near the top and took it up to the counter. Half the pyramid collapsed on the table. 2 salesgirls came running from a corner of the store, frantically picking up the fallen boxes. That's the second time today, one cried. I know, I told Colleen that was a bad idea to build the display this way. Normally, this type of thing would have caused Daisy embarrassment, but today she was amused. It was a small satisfaction to see someone else deal with a misfortune. Daisy took out her credit card and handed it to a woman about her age wearing far too much makeup and a name tag that said Colleen. Colleen smirked as she watched the 2 younger sales associates scramble to repair the display. I knew that was going to happen. Colleen nodded toward the display. I just like watching those 2 actually do some work. Usually they stand in the back and gossip about people they don't even know. Colleen laughed and Daisy joined her. It felt good to laugh. It was short-lived. Stepping back out onto the street, Daisy stopped dead in her tracks. That smell. She was standing in a cloud of shea butter, saffron, and pine. Her eyes darted around, scanning her surroundings. She didn't see him, but she knew that smell, his smell. The bus stop bench was right there in front of the perfume shop. She sat down before her legs gave way. She took her phone out and took photos of her surroundings before turning the camera on herself and making an impromptu vlog entry. Cars, trucks, vans, and buses zipped by. People on bicycles, pedestrians, and kids on skateboards rolled by, all in their own worlds. Daisy held the cell phone in front of her face and forced herself to be as calm as she could. She was silent for a few moments and considered her face in the phone's viewing screen. He was here. He was watching me. I know it. I can smell him. I'm sick of this. I'm sick of Darren not caring. I'm sick of being pushed around and having my privacy invaded. If I'm going to be lonely, I just want to be alone. Without reviewing the clip, she clicked the upload button to her page. Then she stuffed the phone in her purse. As she stuffed the phone in her purse, she dropped the bottle of perfume on the ground. A homeless man picked it up and handed it to her. I saw him, he said. Excuse me? Daisy replied. The man who was watching you. I saw him. What? You were just saying a man was watching you. I saw him. The homeless man appeared to be 20 years Daisy's senior, but living on the streets could do that. They might have been the same age. He was wearing 2 pairs of jeans and a few layers of shirts. Over his right shoulder, he had slung a backpack with a sleeping roll and a jug of water. He was missing his front teeth and smelled of stale body odor and cigarettes. He pointed in the direction of Daisy's car 10 blocks away. Just before you came out of the store, he went that way. Daisy was on the verge of hyperventilating again. What did he look like? Daisy finally asked. I need $5. What? Give me $5 and I'll tell you what he looked like. Daisy dug around in her bag and came up with $3 bills and 2 quarters. She held it out in the palm of her hand towards the guy. This is all I have. Okay. He took it and he shoved it in his pocket. He was like 5'10" or 11, like my height, with very short black hair and a scar on his mouth. So it was him. Daisy was ready to panic. What's your name? Daisy asked the homeless man. Howie, but I'm not talking to anyone else. And he turned and took off across the street, almost getting hit by a mostly white '88 Mustang. The front fenders looked like they were mostly Bondo. The driver stuck his head out the window and swore at Howie, who just smacked the hood of the car with his palm and kept going. The bus pulled up and Daisy got on. She needed to get back to her car. She swiped her transit pass through the slot and sat down in the first available seat. The bus was crowded with high school-age kids. She pulled out her phone and looked at the time. It was about the time school would be letting out. The kids laughed and swore and threw things back and forth. At least she could see he wasn't on the bus. The driver closed the door and the bus lurched forward. When Daisy got back to her car, there was an envelope on the windshield. She picked it up apprehensively. Thank God, it was only a parking ticket. Daisy had never been so happy to get a parking ticket. Clicking the seatbelt, she closed her eyes for a moment and leaned back into the headrest. Her daydream boyfriend appeared in her mind's eye. He was smiling. He was saying something. What was he saying? I see you. I feel you. I need you. I love you. I love you. That's what he was saying. He was telling her he loved her. Daisy's eyes snapped open. She felt someone looking at her, a real someone. She scanned the street, and there he was, just at the corner, leaning on a light post, staring at her. How could she be so stupid? She scrambled to get her phone out of her purse and take a photo, but before she could unlock the screen, he was gone. She shoved her key into the ignition and started the car. There was a loud noise as the car blew up and burst into flames. Daisy never felt any pain. Her death was immediate. He had installed a device just below the driver's seat. So, Daisy died. Frequently in cases of stalking and sexual assault, women are killed. When you hear about them, like cases of stalking and sexual assault are way more common than what you hear about, even. And but we tend to hear about them, once the tragic end is reached. And having lived with this experience of being stalked for a number of years, and having been followed, and having been assaulted and drugged on numerous occasions. More than one, more than two. police treat you like you're crazy or like you're stupid. Like, oh, you're making it up. It's all in your head. You had one bad experience and now you think that's, you think it's everywhere. And the reality is that nobody cares about women. Nobody cares. Nobody cares if you get knocked up by someone without your consent. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about women. And the people who care the least about women are other women. Just look at all these crazy Republican women in particular, right? All these, they trot. Now, the Democrats did it too, with guns, right? You had all those kids down in Florida yapping their traps about guns and, oh, why aren't you saving us from the guns? Blah, 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 blah. The Republicans, they do the same thing with inexperienced children, girls who have no life experience, right? Saying, oh, what about the baby? What about the baby? Baby doesn't have a choice. The woman didn't have any choice. The woman doesn't want to be pregnant. And it's not a baby. It's an embryo. It's a potential life. It's not an actual life. Nobody cares about actual women. Nobody. And so many actual women, because of that, actual women screw other actual women over, right? Instead of, I think about the music industry, So, other women didn't want any more competition, which I don't understand because, how is music a competition? Either somebody likes your music or they don't like your music. And to hold somebody else down because you think it's going to take away from your fan base? Oh my gosh. How narcissistic. And how stupid. If somebody doesn't like your music, they're not going to like your music, right? I never understood that. I never understood that. And, it's like that in pretty much all workplaces, right? You get a couple women who want to chomp at the bit to protect, their pissing ground because it's so hard for a woman to get anywhere, right? When I worked at the city of Sunnyvale, that was the case. Kristen Dance and Diane Moglen and Nancy Bogan Stewart, they all had tenure, right? And Nancy was having to fight for her job because she was a superintendent and there were 2 superintendent's positions and they were eliminating one out of the budget. So either her or the guy John was going to lose his job. I don't know which one lost their job. I know one of them did because that was what was going to happen, but I don't know which one did. And they didn't want me around. I didn't have tenure. I wasn't a regular employee yet. I had to pay my union dues, but I wasn't even allowed to approach the union. And the union rep was friends with Kristen. And they had split Kristen's job into 2 because she said it was too much for her to do. But the reality is that the woman was staying home from work 3 days a week. And she was being allowed to do it because she was friends with Diane and Nancy. They were a little clique, right? They scratched each other's backs. And I was inconvenient. And I was efficient at my job. So I was a threat. So they used the loopholes to get me out of there and told me, Larissa, why do you even care? You're just going to want to have a baby anyway. That's what Diane Moglen told me. You're just going to want to have a baby anyway. As if having a child then meant I couldn't have a job? Or saying that I shouldn't have a job because I should just go have a baby? What the hell kind of sense did any of that make? Especially since, I had to cover the job that was the 2 jobs that were split in half, right, from Kristen. I had to cover my part and her part while she was out on maternity leave. It never made any sense. It never made any sense. It was discrimination. It was discrimination against me. But it's just another example of, women screwing over other women. It happens all the time. far more often when it comes to employment, I believe that women screw over women more than men screw over women. And I can understand why men frequently don't want to have anything to do with women in the workplace because of that dynamic. I've always found it much more easy to work with men than I have with women. And because I don't like engaging in gossip, and that is frequently a tool that's used by women, right? There's a woman that I was friendly with, I thought I was friends with in Oakland, and she didn't want to be friends with me anymore because there was this other woman who I didn't know, and she didn't like this woman, and she used to talk about her all the time. And she'd be like, "Right, Larissa, isn't she like that?" I'm like, "I don't know if she's like that or not. I don't know her." She didn't like that answer. And then she didn't have, then when I say, "Hey, you want to go have lunch?" She's like, "My time is valuable." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Your time is too valuable for my friendship. All right." But that's what I mean. Like, okay. Who needs you? Right? So then I was friends with guys, and then there's always the man. This is friends with men. Oh, she must be sleeping with all of them. Oh, she's such a whore. She's gonna take my husband. I mean, oh my God. The bullshit that I used to hear at church was crazy. So I just don't really have any friends. My mother-in-law, she used to get all friends with gay guys, right? And my mother-in-law would be like, "You're sitting next to that guy." And one guy, Matt, I was friends with. And Omar's like, "Mom, he's gay." And she's like, "That doesn't mean anything." And I'm like, "Really?" It's ridiculous. So, like, what's the answer? My answer has always been my artwork and writing. And then people come, they steal my artwork and they steal my writing, steal my choreography, steal my music. So what the hell are we celebrating today on the 4th of July? Because I sure as hell don't know. I don't feel like we're free. We're supposed to be celebrating our independence from the United Kingdom. Whoop-de-fucking-do. Whoop-de-do. I'll tell you, I'd really like some freedom from oppressive government that we've had for the past number of years. From the oppressive structure of social media, from the oppressive structure of neighborhood, from the oppressive structure of law enforcement, from the oppressive structure of organized crime. I'd like freedom from all that. Daisy's free. Daisy's free of it all now, huh? How many more? One. Two or three. I've got 2 or 3 more. I think it's 2. It's 2 more. Yep. 2 more. 2 more chapters. Happy 4th of July. I hope you don't get your hair set on fire by fireworks like Michael Jackson in that Pepsi commercial. I hope your neighborhood doesn't get burned down by embers from fireworks. I hope nobody shoots you at a parade. I hope you don't choke on a hot dog. Our pie was really good. We had it for breakfast.